Throughout the course of the Civil War, the actions of all brave men were well documented, but the quiet leadership of all women was forgotten, though it changed the course of our nation forever.
As the war progressed, many women took on the jobs of men by tending to the plantation, running the households, or the family businesses. Women in the South also had to take on the work of the slaves who had run away or been freed.
Look at my hand. Mother said you could always tell a lady by her hand.
I guess things like hands and ladies don't matter so much anymore. You, Winston, you're not William, and I can pick cotton for both of you.
Nursing became an important way of life for women to volunteer their time for the cause. At first, it was considered unladylike, but as the casualties rose, the need for this work increased. Limitations on nurses included marital status, age, and attire. Many prominent figures, such as Clara Barton, Florence Nightingale, and Dorothea Dix, emerged during this period.
Yeah.
Because women were not allowed to enroll in the military, some disguised themselves as men and served in the Union or the Confederate armies. Since they were disguised, however, it is impossible to know how many women soldiers there were exactly in the Civil War. The purpose of these women was commonly to be with their husbands, but many served alone out of pure patriotism. Women were represented in all three branches of the army: the infantry, cavalry, and artillery. Many of them surprisingly became sergeants, or in some cases officers. Many of these women held those positions until they were wounded or killed. Some even held the position throughout the Civil War. Many of the enlisted men were very young, so feminine features such as a high voice or hairless face were not signals of a woman being in the camp. However, gestures might give a woman away. Mary Smith, who was serving in the 41st Ohio Infantry, was disguised as a male in camp when, quote, an unmistakable twist to the dishcloth and wringing it out that no masculine man could ever successfully counterfeit, gave her away. Not all women were discovered in such interesting ways. Women were usually discharged after medical treatment. Becoming pregnant or being killed in action also revealed many others. In reality, it wasn't hard to act as a man in the military. Early medical examinations did not go into depth. As long as a soldier had 2 good eyes and the ability to walk and carry a gun, they were allowed into the war. Without many clothes, the men usually wore the same uniforms for weeks on end, and only bathed possibly once a week. So washing was not an issue. Some women, like Loretta Velázquez, practiced to become very masculine. It was said that she wore a false mustache and practiced a swagger. It is claimed that once in jail in Lynchburg, Virginia, under suspicion of being a woman, she propped her feet up on a windowsill, turned her head and spat just as a few friendly visitors arrived at her jail cell, just to convince them that she was not a woman.
Women with a strong desire to do something for the cause, but did not wish to dress as men and bear arms, could do something more glamorous and exciting, such as serving as a spy. But women who were in or near the army camps were subject to careful scrutiny and were suspect, particularly if they were there at odd times, unescorted, or acted in any way eccentric. Because ladies were still expected to be treated as ladies, it was very easy for them to move information or even goods through enemy lines. The fashions of the time, such as hoop skirts and hairstyle, made it easy to wrap up letters and maps. These spies risked everything for their cause. An acceptable way to serve with the army was as a vivandere. They accompanied their husband or male relative with the intent of being there to serve as a nurse. Though not in a uniform, they dressed in militaristic fashion. Many of them did carry arms, such as swords. A vivandere was held in very high esteem by the men, as they possessed good moral character.
The expanding roles of women during the war period raised self-consciousness and participation in politics, encouraging more women to become involved in the women's rights movement. However, women's rights were eclipsed by the war and emancipation. Women proposed that the fight for freedom be extended to women, but there was little action during this period. The abolition of slavery was the foremost issue in most activists' minds. As Lincoln said, "This is the hour of the Negro." Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton were leaders of the women's rights movement. Both women were also active abolitionists. After the war, they produced the publication, The Revolution, which called for equal pay and equal rights, and they founded the National Woman Suffrage Association. In 1863, Anthony and Stanton formed the Women's National Loyal League, an organization demanding that the fight for freedom be extended to women as well as African Americans. They fought for the right to vote, equal wages in manufacturing jobs, and the right to work as nurses. The organization paved the way for more structured association within the women's rights movement.
While working as nurses, spies, in the vivandere, running the family homes, businesses, and plantations, or even doing other despicable things like dressing up as men to join the military, the women of our country achieved more than can be spoken of. Who knows what the women of the future will achieve? For after all, tomorrow is another day. The end.